Hi there guys, thank you for joining us. We are going to summarize some data today. This is the big one. Get your calculator, strap yourself in, and let's calculate some mean, median, mode and range. Okay, the first question. Working out the mean, we find the sum of the scores to be 40 divided by 7 gives me a mean of 5.7, or some people will say average. Now we'll rub these out as we go. So be on your game because I need the space to do some more working out. Okay, the second one, the median. Now this one can be tricky at times. Firstly, you can see I'm writing the data set out in order. Now, hopefully I've written 7 numbers down. It always pays to check that twice. Okay, 1, 2, 3, beautiful, looks good. Okay, now a real simple method to calculate the median. You can count in from the outside. People use their 2 index fingers. And then you can see the 5 is in the middle. Pretty easy technique. I wouldn't say mathematically brilliant, but let's just show you something that's a bit more mathematical in nature. So if I have 7 scores or any number of scores, I will add 1 to that value. I divide it by 2. Now that gives me 4. The median is not 4. We know it's 5. It's the 4th number in the ordered data set. Okay, so what I'm saying is that means 1, 2, 3, 4, and that is that one down there, and you can see it's the 5. We are guaranteed, and that's what I like. Nice work. Rightio. Now we're looking at the mode. No tricks on this one. Look at the numbers. Which number comes up the most? It is the fabulous 5. All right. Finally, the range. Nice and simple. The terminology that we use in the notes is it's the difference between the largest number, okay, which in this case is 9, and the smallest number is 3. So the difference between those numbers is 6. Beautiful. Easy marks, easy marks. We don't get those ones wrong where we can. Okay, the second example. Now this one is a little trickier, and there's a couple of things that it pays to consider when you're doing this. Now firstly, with the mean, there's an easier way to do this and there's a harder way. Now of course, you could add up all of these numbers, you know, so we got 1 and 1 is 2. Plus another one is 3. You could add that. That's 5. Now that's going to take me a long time, and I haven't got the patience for that. So another way that you can do it is there are 3 people who had 1 child in their family. There are 5 people who had 2. There are 6 that had 3. I think you can see what I'm doing here. There are 2 that had 4. And 1 that had 5. Now what that's going to do is that's going to actually give me the sum of all of the scores. Okay, so if I'm calculating the mean, I did need the sum, and it was 44 over 17. There's 17 scores, and it gives me a mean or an average of 2.6. Now I'm rounding these to 1 decimal place today. Okay, lovely, lovely. All right, now one thing there that's useful is just to remember that we had 17 scores. I'm going to need that when I think about the median. Okay, so with the median, we are looking for that middle number, and I showed you before a nice technical method. We have 17 scores. I add 1, I divide it by 2, and that gives me 9. I'm looking for the 9th score. Okay. Now this isn't too technical at all, but I can just count along these numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and any one of those are the 9th. So the median is equal to 3. Okay. Beautiful. All good. Now the mode, one of the lovely things about these dot frequency graphs is that the mode is really easy to see. Okay, the most frequently occurring value is 3. Okay, so the most common response was that 6 different families had 3 kids. All right, just be careful that you understand the relevance of the x-axis there. Okay, and finally the last one, range. And it is a bit different because, you know, you are looking at a picture and people make mistakes with this, so it is worth showing you. So the range, the highest score is 5 and the lowest score is 1, and that gives me a range of 4. I hope you're happy with that, because we're going to move on to the next one now. Alrighty, here we go. Now there are 3 more on this page, so bear with us, okay? One of the things that I showed you before, we can use that again when calculating the mean. All right, so now if I looked at the raw scores here, I would have 6, 6, 7, 7, 7. Now again, it's going to take me all day to add those up. I'm never going to do that. It takes too long. I'll probably make a mistake. So what I'm going to do, like I did before, is I'm going to do the score times the frequency. Okay? Now, this is going to give me the sum of all the scores once I add them up. Okay, so I'm just putting in the values there. Hopefully that all looks good. And I can tell you that that adds up to 162. And now the frequency. So that's going to be the number of scores. All right, so 2, 5, 12, and I've got 20. Lovely. So if I'm calculating the mean, I will have 162 over 20, and that equals 8.1. How'd you like that? Rightio. Now, the median. This can get tricky. We had 20 scores. We add 1, we divide it by 2, and that equals 10.5. Remember, median's not 10.5. We are looking for the score that is between the 10th and the 11th number. Okay? It's the score between them. Now, if those 2 scores are the same, it will be whatever the value is. If the scores are different, we'll take the average of the 2. Okay? So, if I look at this, I've got 2 scores of 6, 3 scores of 7, and 7 scores of 8. Now, those 7 scores of 8 will take me up until the 12th score. So that says that both of those scores, the 10th and the 11th, will both be 8s, okay? And that means the median will be 8. Okay? Alrighty, and the mode. This one looks like we have 2 modes. You can see that we have 7 scores of 8 and 7 scores of 9. Okay, so that means this is bimodal. Okay, now remember, there are 2 modes. One of them is 8 and one of them is 9. Okay, so it's really important that we understand that it's the score that we're looking at. We're looking at which one of those scores occurs most. Well, it was 8 and it was 9. So just be careful with that one. Okay, the last one we're looking at is the range. So we have a highest score of 10 and a lowest score of 6, and that will give me a range of 4. Nice. Let's move along. Okay, a stem and leaf plot. All right, now this is, I hate to tell you this, you're going to have to get your calculator out, I reckon. I can tell you one thing though. This number here that I'm looking at, the 4, does represent 44. Likewise, the next one's 46, 47. Now, to find the mean, of course, you do need to add those scores all up. There's no easy way to do that. Okay, so the sum of all of these scores is 976. There are 14 scores, and that gives me a mean of 69.7. Okay. Just another thing to watch out for, just remember that is 106 as well. Okay. It's easy to make mistakes. You do see people do that. Okay, the median. Got that feeling that this will be tricky again. All right. So we want to find which number is going to be the middle number. Now you can see that this stem and leaf plot is in order. Now if it isn't in order, you can reorder it or you can rewrite the list and numbers down, just from smallest to biggest. It's up to you how you do that. All right. So we had 14 scores. We'll add 1, divide it by 2. It equals 7.5. All right. So that means the median will be between the 7th and the 8th score. This should be easy to count up to those two. So we got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so the 7th score was 68 and the 8th score was 72. Now I reckon most people are going to be able to calculate the middle of that. 68 plus 72. Now if you divide it by 2, of course that will give you a median equal to 70. How's that? All right, that's often the trickiest one there. Okay, the next one we will be looking at is the mode. Now, do any of the numbers occur more than once? Let's have a look here. Yes, nice and easy again. The mode, we're just looking to find a number and it equals 72. So that's all good. And finally, we're looking for the range. And you can see how I made a point of making sure you did understand that was the 106. And that'll leave us with a range of 62. That's brilliant, guys. Thanks for sticking with us. We've only got one more to go. All right. Again, we've got something a little different here, okay? So we've got a class interval of 1 to 5, and the frequency says that we've got 3 scores that lie between 1 and 5. I don't know what the scores were. I don't have the raw data, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to find the midpoint of the interval here, okay? Now this is a pretty easy thing to do. All we're going to do is we're going to do 1 plus 5 and we'll divide it by 2. And that's going to give you a midpoint of 3. So I'm going to do that for each of the intervals. So we've got 3, 8 and 10 is 16, divided by 2 is 8, that'll be 13. You see it's going up by 5, so it's pretty self-explanatory what's going to happen there. All right, so what I'm saying here, now I'm actually just trying to calculate the mean, okay? So I'm trying to find a way to find the sum of the scores, all right? So what I have to do is I'll do my 3 scores of 3, which is 9. I've got my 8 scores of 5, which are 40. And then I've got my 13 scores of 9 and 18 scores of 6. Sorry, 6 scores of 18 and 2 scores of 23. Now, if I add all of those up together, I will get a total of 320. And I have 8, 9, 17, 25 scores. And that's going to give me a mean equal to 12.8. All right. And when I think about that, if I have a look at the actual data, 12.8 would lie in here. So it looks like it's pretty symmetrically distributed amongst this interval here. So it does make sense that it is sort of somewhere close to the middle of the data. Okay, so hopefully that you can see how that works out. All right, so that was just the mean. Okay, now remember we have 25 pieces of data. Always good to remember that when you have to calculate the next one. All right. Should be getting this down to a fine art now. We're on to the median. Okay, So again, 25 pieces of data. If I add 1 to that, it's 26 divided by 2. Awesome. I'm looking for the 13th number. Okay, the 13th number. That should be pretty easy. Okay, so again, I'm going to count up. So going here, that's all up to the 8th, and that'll be up to the 17th number. So I can see that the 13th number is going to be in this class interval. Okay, so between the interval of 11 to 15 is equal to the median. Okay, now just one thing that while I'm remembering, when we were talking about the mean, it's only an estimated mean, okay, because we didn't know the raw values, okay, and we used an average of those scores in these intervals, okay, so it is an estimated mean. It's not an exact mean because you don't know that raw data. All right. Okay, so the median lies within the interval between 11 and 15, okay? Now, the mode, all right, so we refer to this as the modal class, okay? Because these things here, they're all class intervals, all right? Which one is the most frequently occurring? And again, we could see it was in the 11 to 15 modal class, okay? Now, the last one, the range. Now, the range is, it's not really very clear, and I guess it's not that useful because you really don't know, was there a score of 25 or was there a score of 1? Well, I can't really tell you, but I can give you a maximum value of the range because it could have been a score of 25 and there could have been a score of 1. So if my maximum value is 25 and my minimum value is 1, the maximum range would be 24. Rightio guys, I hope you enjoyed that one. It was a long one. Thanks for sticking with us and we'll see you again soon.